Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be a super fun episode. So, today we're going to talk about the number one investment most people make when they're thinking about getting into cosmetics and aesthetics. The first recommendation you're going to get when people say, "Hey, how do I get in there?" Because you're not going to learn it in nursing or NP school. If you want to practice dermatology or cosmetics, you're going to have to come outside of that curriculum and you're going to have to think about whether or not you want to invest in your first Botox or filler course. And then the question becomes, how do I decide which one is the right one for me, right? It costs thousands of dollars. And more importantly, you're investing in your confidence and your patient safety. Every website looks good. Every social media page has a lot of followers with really nice photos and promises of six-figure career. But how do you tell the difference between a high value investment and a high cost mistake? Today, I'm giving you an exclusive sneak peek into one of my newest books, Nursing Aesthetics, an Introductory Guide for Nurse Practitioners and Entrepreneurs, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Last time we did this batch content day, I was still waiting for the ebook to be available on Amazon. It's now available wherever books are sold, but I mentioned Amazon and Barnes & Noble because they're kind of some big names. But you can get either your paperback copy or ebook version on either of those platforms. A huge shout out to those of you who have already made a purchase. But today we're going to go talk about chapters 6 and 7 and share my actual framework for how you can build a checklist for evaluating and choosing the right foundational course so you invest with a lot of confidence. This isn't just for you, the employee, the person making the investment. This is for the employer who used to be you, who used to be that employee just a few months ago, just a couple years ago. That was your first time in cosmetics. It's your first time as a business owner. It's your first time creating a course like this and training other clinicians to this level who are looking to have a really high output on their return of investment. And so this is a checklist for you too. So you can tell them, hey, look, I meet all of these requirements. I'm not afraid of you to come in here and rate and evaluate me. In fact, I want to be at the Olympics, right? We want that kind of level of critique so that we're confident about what we're putting out and people are confident about their investment that they're putting in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctoral prepared nurse practitioner and the founder of the Alliance of Cosmetic Nurse Practitioners, a professional membership for nurse practitioners who specialize in cosmetics and entrepreneurship, who want to have a business on the side or start their own empire. We pick up where your course leaves off, whether that's a weekend course, on demand, or you went back to school, because your first question is never your last question. And when you have another question about your patient, about your business, about your personal life and how you balance it all, where are you going to go? Well, you hope you come to the Alliance, where every week where they're holding your hand with live lectures, answering your questions in real time, covering everything from dermatology nursing to clinical practice and business. When we're learning, we're identifying gaps in practice, in research, in the market, and then we're helping you develop those ideas so you can address those gaps, so you can either build a business completely on that foundation or add it to what you already have going. We come here live doing these batch content days because that's how I stay consistent and persistent. When you stay consistent and persistent, that's the secret to business growth. Not all the degrees, not all the certifications, not the zip code that you live in. It's staying consistent and persistent. Not how much your website costs, not how much your scrubs cost, not how beautiful your practice looks. It's staying consistent and persistent. You do that, you create yourself your own job, you create yourself your own lane, and you find other people want to do the same thing. And then we just keep each other in business. So let's jump into this book because today we have 8 episodes on the menu and it's going to get interrupted because I do have some brainstorming sessions to do for the Melanin Initiative. Now, it's September at the time that I'm filming this and it's Alopecia Awareness Month. We have partnered with the Melanin Initiative to answer community questions. So we've been so grateful that we've been allowed to be part of a patient support group for alopecia, and they have been a wealth of information, especially when it comes to questions. And so the first question came out the gate was about pumpkin seed oil. And so you can actually right now, you can go over to the Melanin Initiative podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, only audio, not on YouTube, but Spotify or Apple, and you can listen to an episode on pumpkin seed oil. It's pretty in-depth. It's about an hour. It goes into a lot of the latest research, but also other supplements, rosemary, saw palmetto, melatonin. What were some other ones? There's some really cool stuff out there. Metformin. can't remember. I've been reading so much content. I can't remember if they talked about coconut oil, or I think that was another book. But it's really, really good. And so that came from the community. So since they have been kind enough to let us in, it was their question to begin with. We're sharing that information. And then we have another one coming up. By the time you're watching this, you can see that one too. They had, oh man, almost 30 questions that they had asked. And so we answered those too. And that's, if you're joining me right now for batch content day, it's not available, but it will be up next Wednesday. So let's see, that will be September 10th. If you're watching this and it's been September 10th, 2025, you can catch that. And that, lots of questions about GLP-1s, which we're going to do a separate episode on, as well as red light therapy. But questions about genetics, is it worth it to continue to invest? Side effects of the medications, really thoughtful questions. And it's so good to hear from the patient, because we have our questions, but the people who are actually living it, their questions are the ones that really, really matter. And so just really grateful for that group, and the amount of support that we've been able to see, and the level of understanding of the disease process that they've accumulated. So anyway, I have brainstorming to do in about 15 minutes. So, and I might be able to come back at 4:30 Central, do another episode, and then probably the last one at 5:30. We'll see how good we do. So let's jump into it. So the first mindset when you're getting into making this transition into cosmetics is really important, because you're not just a consumer buying a course, right? You're always going to be a learner, both as the person consuming something, but also as the person creating and building, okay? You're an investor buying your competence. I know you're going into this thing because you want to be the one doing it, the worker bee, but there's a possibility that in your journey, you might see something that you're willing to invest in. You might see someone you're willing to invest in their business. In your journey, you might identify gaps, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to keep going if there's so many gaps, because if there's gaps in the education, there's going to be gaps in my practice. And for some of us, that's not acceptable. So you might decide to park yourself right there and build your business based off of that. So keep an open eye, keep an open mind. Okay, so the question is always, woo, look how much it costs, right? Well, yeah, they average between $2,000 and so each time you take a course. So one Botox course, one filler course, beginner, advanced, another advanced level, this provider, that provider, this part of the country, that part of the country, this conference, overseas, so many options are out there. So in chapter 6, we talk about the Aesthetic MP training program Scorecard. It's a tool to force the investor's mindset. It's not just about learning to inject, it's about learning in a way that protects your patients and your license and your brand, right? Nurses are all about protecting our license. So let's look at this, okay? I see that I have company, so let me know by hitting the subscribe button. Let me know if you've already purchased your copy, and if you've already taken your first Botox course. If you have, and you highly recommend it, let us know in the comments so we can let other people know, right? There's no reason for anyone to waste their time or money on something that's not going to be beneficial. So let's look at the non-negotiables when you're looking at these different courses, right? These are the questions you must ask before you even pay. You can take the questions that we're going to go over. You can email them to the course creator and ask them. You can hop on a video call if you see them in person. These are the things you can ask before you even make your investment, okay? It's not too late if you've already made the investment, but I wrote this to help you. So even though I started this by saying a lot of times the first investment you're going to make is a Botox or filler course, I really want this to be your first investment so that you save time and money and stress. This is less than $100. Those courses are a couple of thousand. And if you're transitioning right out of graduating, you already know it's expensive, this lifestyle, right? Graduation, licensures, certifications, scrubs, the whole nine. Last month alone, 3 of my licenses had to be renewed at the same time. It's not cheap. And then, yeah, we tell you go to conference, like we talked about last week when we talked about the Learn Scheme conference, and we tell you to join professional memberships. There are some ones that offer free membership for students, but then after that, you have to pay the regular price. And the more education you obtain, the more expensive it gets. But it doesn't always correlate with how much you're being compensated. But if you have your own business, then the sky's the limit, right? So let's look at this. So let's talk about clinical content and safety. Does the course have a deep dive in facial anatomy, vascular danger zones, and most importantly, a step-by-step protocol for managing a vascular occlusion. We know for a fact there's a paucity of data when it comes to handling vascular occlusion and skin of color. In chapter 7 of the book, I list the exact questions you can ask, like what are your immediate steps if vascular occlusion is suspected? If the course organizer can't answer in detail, that's a massive red flag. Now, if you haven't made the purchase yet, they might say, I cover that in the course. So there's two parts of the questions. There's the ones you ask before you invest and the ones after that. So let's take a look. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Okay. So, so first of all, legitimate training should be taught by someone who is experienced with credentials that you can verify. You can verify on an independent website, on an independent place. We're public figures. So people can look us up, our license, where we're licensed on a public platform. You can do the same thing. Okay, and legitimate training is taught by experienced providers. This includes anatomy, physiology, and complication management, not just marketing, which is a big part of what happens when you come to aesthetics. So in nursing school and P school, there's no business. There is financials. We do cover some financials over there. You get a whole lot more when you get to your doctoral program. But there's really not on the marketing and sales. Now, when you get into cosmetics, you will see a lot of people offer marketing support, when you pay them. And so you do get a little bit of that. But I think there's a huge, huge gap when it comes to understanding sales, because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Do they provide hands-on practice under supervision? People have been complaining that they've been going to some courses and they haven't had a chance to do any hands-on. It's been all observation. I don't know if they didn't know that going in, but that's been the case. You have to look at the state laws. If you're going out of state to get your training, are you going to be able to actually touch patients? And then some people have said they did get to touch patients, but it wasn't a lot. And actually, I broke all of this down on the blog, the Mahogany Dermatology blog, in an article called How to Get Into Aesthetics. We talk about all the feedback that people have been giving. And so you can also go over there and see that in detail. Do they offer post-training support or mentorship? I told you your first question won't be your last question. So once this weekend is over or the courses are completed, do you still have access to them? And what does that look like? Is it email? Is it to them directly or is it to their team? Do you have to pay for that? How long do you have to wait to get a response? What if you have an emergency? Is that someone you can call? Would they feel comfortable doing that? And do they feel comfortable doing that free of charge? If they do charge, what's the charge look like? And is there like a retainer? Issues with documentation that clearly state what was covered, and does it align with current clinical guidelines and best practice? You're going to need to also be able to know some of that too. Okay, it should never be just about learning to inject. It should be about understanding when, why, and when not to, right? That's having that critical lens that we've been talking about all day if you've been here with me for Batch Content Day. So, it looks really fun, but it's really important to understand that cosmetics is a specialty. It's medicine, right? With real consequences if it's not done correctly. And it requires ongoing education. So even after you spend those $2,000, you're going to keep doing that, okay? So yes, you'll need to invest more than that one training, and I highly recommend more than just cosmetics. You can certainly seek out financial advisors, people who can help you understand asset management, taxes, and estate planning, right? When you're evaluating the program, ask, what's the trainer's background? Will you get to practice on live models? Is it your requirement to bring in those models? How many models will you see? And what's the diversity of that? Is it different skin tones, different ages, different genders, different problems? It would be really good if you did get a complication, you can see that in real time. I know when I train a lot of NPs, and when I was orienting, people would apologize if a mistake happened, but I said, no, this is perfect. I want to see how you troubleshoot this, because when I'm on my own, I'm going to need to know how to figure that out. So problems are not always a bad thing. It's a great opportunity for learning. We always talk to our patients about the risk for complications. It's very hard to guarantee anything in medicine. So you want to be very clear about that, setting up expectations. And so when people know that you're going to do that, and they accept that when it happens and you communicate it and you're transparent and honest about it, they're okay with that. Much more. It's not always the content that you have to say, it's the transparency about that content. Let's see. How are complications handled during training? Is the course CE accredited, and by which one? So, some of you are board certified by AANP or the American Association of Nurse Practitioners. Some of us are board certified by ANCC, American Nurses Credentialing Center. And sometimes it can be hard to figure out which CEs will be accepted. And so at the time that if you're with me right now, during batch content day, it's not available. But by the time this airs in the Mahogany Dermatology blog and in the Mahogany Dermatology Nursing bookstore, we have a CE guide to help you with that, and that is free. Do they teach techniques for diverse skin tones and facial structures? And if so, what are the resources for that? Can you get access to that? Okay. And then let's go to some of the questions that you can ask. And then also in here, I cover red flags, clinical content, hands-on experience, and of course that post-training support, more detailed questions for you, and the logistics and legality. Now, and then we have our scorecard, and here you'll be able to check off everything and rate it on a scale from 0 to 10 to determine whether this is a strong program, moderate, or they likely are inadequate and won't meet the standards of care. Now, in Chapter 7, these are questions you can ask during your training. And so you can take this with you. If you have the ebook version, you can just pull it up on your phone. Okay, so the question is, can you walk me through the vascular danger zones in this injection site? Okay, what are the depth and angle of injection here, and why? Why is the most important question you can ever ask. How long is this product expected to last, and how does it integrate into the tissue? Okay, what are your immediate steps if vascular occlusion is suspected? And then you want to repeat all this stuff back. Just like our patients, in nursing, we do this thing called teach back. That's how we evaluate that what I said was received in the way that I meant it. Just because you think you said it great, you said it 100 times and you're a clear communicator, that doesn't mean the person receiving it did that, because we all have our different communication styles. And in particular, when we're talking about patients who are receiving a lot of information at one time, it's very overwhelming. And we only remember 30% of what we hear. You're only going to remember 30% of this video. But when you repeat something back, when you take information and use it in another way, put it in your own words, share it with someone else, review it, repeat it, it creates a new wrinkle in your brain. When you create those new wrinkles, it helps with your retention and your understanding. So you move beyond recall. When you're an undergraduate student, that's a lot of what you're doing. It's just recall. I told you something, spit it back. There's multiple choice, pick out the right one. You kind of already have it in front of you. But when you move on to graduate level education, it's not just recall anymore. We want you to apply what you're learning. And so that's one of the differences. If you haven't moved on to graduate education and you're wondering if that's your next step, that's what you can expect. It's a different kind of thinking. I always say at the undergraduate level, they tell you what to think. At the master's level, they want to know what you think. And at the doctoral level, you become the they. Okay. And it's a transition. All of it's all a transition. How do you counsel patients on risk without creating fear? Super important. And what red flags would make you decline treatment today? How do you assess for body dysmorphia or unrealistic expectations? How do you modify your approach for patients with richly pigmented skin? What considerations do you make when patients have cultural or religious norms around beauty? And then in the appendix, you'll find our aesthetic NP onboarding training program, which is the first 60 to 90 days, a 4-week Botox and 4-week filler training roadmap for your new aesthetic or cosmetic NP. We have our Botox and filler pricing calculator. And then we have a sample adverse event SOP in there for an NP-led medical spa. And then we have our competency checklist. In nursing, everything is based on competencies. We've said this is the standard of care that should be met. And then competency shows you that you can demonstrate that to the level of standards that are satisfactory. And so you can use that list. Look, it goes on. It's like, look at that. Lots of checklists for competency. That's 4 pages. Okay. So you're going to feel really confident when you walk out of there. That's the goal. We want you to feel confident, right? I want in nursing, You have to have we're selling our confidence every day collectively. It's not just about you, it's about all of us. And so when you say no, when you say yes, when you set boundaries, when you elevate your practice, when you elevate that level of inquiry, you do that for all of us. Okay. Everyone's still really trying to figure out what learning is, what nursing is. And you're part of helping us to fill those gaps in knowledge. So I see you here. Let me know in the comments what's one question you wish you would have asked before you paid. And if you haven't signed up yet, let us know what other questions you have. Maybe we can help you with that. Okay. So the key takeaway for today is first of all, thank you for being here. A certificate is not equal to competence. Anyone can make a certificate, and they're not required outside of like their actual clinical practice. They're not required. They're just signs that you completed a course. And in America, we put a lot of value over them. But that's not where you should stop. And it also isn't where you should put all your money in your own basket, because after that course, I want you to keep learning. Every single day, I want you to show up and keep learning. So that certification is just for someone else to see. And they may or may not ask for it. That's the other thing, right? All these degrees or certifications I've had they're on a resume and stuff like that, but they never come up in conversation. So just keep that in mind. Your first training course is going to be a business decision that lays the foundation for the rest of your career and your business. Do your own due diligence. You can use this framework, make an investment that pays dividends in safety, confidence, and skill. If you love this sneak peek and you're ready for the complete step-by-step guide to building your career the right way, or you want to gift someone, all of us know someone who wants to get into nursing or cosmetics, feel free to head on over to you can go to the Mahogany Dermatology Nursing Bookstore, and you can access it from there. Nursing Aesthetics, an introductory guide for nurse practitioners and entrepreneurs. It's packed with scorecards, checklists, pricing calculators, and a roadmap you need to move forward with confidence. That link is in the description box. If you're joining me for Batch Content Day, we'll take a break as I head over to do these brainstorming sessions for the Mel Initiative podcast. And we invite you to check out our alopecia partnership with them. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.